Island Girl, and I'm back with another reaction video for you today. And today I'm reacting to Thomas Sowell, Fallacies of Race. Alright guys, so we're going to get right into this one. So if you're new to my channel, it's the first time here, come on in, right back, put a smile on your face, and enjoy. To all my regular smugglers, my day one, my sweetie pies, my sweetie poos, come on in, right back, put a smile on your face, and enjoy. Let me put it this way. I know a lot of persons have issues with what side Thomas Sowell is or where he's at. For me, I don't care what side he's on, as long as what he's selling makes sense, speaking facts, and I'm learning something, and we can learn something. Doesn't matter what side a person is on. Can learn something? Why not? It would be stupid of you not to listen and let your emotions get in the way and not learn something. That's how I see it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Here we go. Fallacies of Race. Thomas Sowell. Here we go.
Economic Facts and Fallacies, quote, "Some things are believed because they are demonstrably true, but many other things are believed simply because they have been asserted repeatedly," close quote. You wish to let that gloomy observation on human nature stand?
Yes.
Racism caused slavery.
Race wasn't the basis of slavery?
Oh, it's a simple historical matter. Slavery existed for thousands of years, as far back as there are any records of human beings. Archaeological finds suggest that slavery existed before human beings could read and write. So,
true.
But a racial difference between the slaves and the enslavers, that is a relatively new phenomenon. You didn't have in ancient times the ability to go to another continent and move millions of people of a different race across the ocean. So you enslaved the people who were nearby. The Europeans enslaved Slavs for centuries before they brought the first black African to the Western Hemisphere.
Okay, but so you're not suggesting, you do not wish to say anything other than that slavery as practiced in the United States it may have been recent, but you'd be willing to grant that it was particularly perverse and destructive because race got mixed into it at that point, right?
Race got mixed into it in the United States more than anywhere else for a very simple reason. The United States was founded, as the Declaration said, of independence, all men are created equal.
Right.
If that's true, then the only way you can justify slavery is to say that some men are less than men.
I see.
Ah, wow. Now, I didn't see that coming as an answer. But I get what he's saying, because in a video that I watched before was talking about how you can feel like you see that people are lesser than. Boils down to, let me put it my way, like the way I'm getting from this is, all boils down to power. A man in power, in position, feel as if person is lower than him. You understand? So now I can see how it makes sense with what he said. So if you didn't have money or you didn't have power, then if we were all on the same level, then you can't feel like, say, I'm less than you. That makes sense. Interesting.
So the racial
but in Brazil, where Brazil imported more slaves than the United States, there was no such ideology. Brazil was not a democratic country. The whole issue never arose.
I see.
Wow.
All right. Race doesn't account for differences in black-white income?
No, the differences between income between Western Europeans and Eastern Europeans is greater than the difference between blacks and whites in the United States. Differences in income are the rule. They are not the exception.
So
I'm like him. I'm confused.
Looking at all these sociological studies that show a persistent gap between African Americans in income and every other form of American in income is what? Useless? It tells us things that we don't need to know? It misleads us? How would you describe that?
Wrong, I think, sums it up. Uh, it is not true. Hispanics have a lower per capita income than blacks. Hispanic households and families have a higher income than black households and families, simply because the Hispanic families are larger.
Bigger. Ah. The black are less based on the fact that it's a small amount. Was the Hispanic, they make less, but it looks like much more because they have a larger family. Where does the white come into play into this? Interesting.
Economic facts and fallacies. A fallacy is that the current fatherless families so prevalent among contemporary blacks are a legacy of slavery, where families were not recognized under slavery. This ignores the fact that the problem has become much worse among generations of blacks far removed from slavery than among generations closer to the era of slavery, close quote. Explain that.
You mean explain why it is so, or
Yes, see, why is that? What on earth is going on there? That is so counter to what we assume.
Well, first of all, most people have not recognized the fact that if you go back into the 20s, you find that married couple families were much more prevalent among blacks then than today.
Yeah.
You find also, incidentally, that the blacks had, as late as 1930, blacks had lower unemployment rates than whites. So
That's
all
true.
these things that we complain about and attribute to the era of slavery, those things should have been worse in the past than in the present.
Right.
But in fact, they're worse in the present than in the past. And I think if you want to look for a turning point, it would be since the 1960s.
And what happened in the 1960s?
Oh, you began to have not only the welfare state, you began to have the mindset that goes with the welfare state, so that there was no stigma any longer attached, for example, to being on relief or welfare.
And so,
Wow. So all this deterioration started when the welfare come into play, when people didn't stigmatize, okay, who is on welfare? Who is getting relief? Who is getting help? So that no push, man, this is crazy, guys. Just listening to this, and I'm like, why can't people look back and see the difference? Just like he's pinpoint, what is so wrong with what he's saying? He's pointed out the reality of what was going on then compared to now, and it makes sense because guess what? When you stop to think about it, nobody wants to get up and push and work hard. Everybody wants a handout. A lot of people want a handout, and it doesn't get them anywhere. Jesus, no sir.
Or welfare.
and so, but why? Well, illegitimacy is exploding now among, it's high among Hispanics,
Yes.
and it's exploding among whites. But the Moynihan report, when was that, Tom?
Or in
It
the
was
60s, 64, 65. I
when
believe.
Moynihan talked about the illegitimacy rate among
Yes.
blacks, which was exploding then. So what if the welfare state changes the way Americans think?
Yes.
Why did black Americans prove susceptible to that change first?
Because they were poor. I don't think that many
Yeah.
Asian American girls who are preparing to go off to Stanford or Harvard are going to say, hey, I can live on welfare, why should I abstain?
True. So true. That is so true. Market.
Distinguish the two, race and discrimination.
Well, racism is an attitude inside people's heads.
Right.
Discrimination is an overt act taking place outside in the real world.
Okay. So
So not only with blacks, but you find the same thing with Jews in previous centuries, that part of the United States where there was the most racism against blacks, namely the South,
right.
is where black construction workers were much more common than they were in the North, right on into the 20th century. And most people are unaware that in the South, blacks were the construction workers. I remember a professor at Howard University saying that when he was a boy in the South, his father pointed to some man on the street and said, He was the first first white construction worker in this town.
And so what was going on there? The racism did not, so whites could think of blacks as somehow or other separate, but they still employ them because the market made it profitable to do so.
Yeah, yes. In fact, a law had to be passed to stop this because in the 20s, and particularly as the Depression got underway, black construction companies in the South using black non-union labor would come up to the North and underbid on government contracts, taking them away. And so this was very common, to the point where they passed the Davis-Bacon Act, which said that on government contracts you must pay the prevailing wage, which translated almost invariably into the union wage.
Right. So your point on the distinction between racism and discrimination is, don't worry about racism. It's inside people's heads. You can't measure it. There's a strongly subjective, just forget about it, concentrate only on discrimination, and the best answer to discrimination is to let markets operate, because then people will discover, it will tend to militate against discrimination. When people have skills to offer, they'll be employed. Whatever this notion of racism in people's heads is, don't worry about that. Is that right?
Yeah, what I'm saying is...
Wow. I get that. Yes. Yum, yum, yum. I get that. So, race in the head, but discrimination is shown. Man. So basically, he's saying, look, don't worry about that. Equip yourself, because when a person is nasty, they'll show their true color. You're going to see it. You can't worry about what is in a man's mind, but they'll show their true color. Get all the qualification you need. Get everything you need. Do not worry about what they're thinking. It's based on their action. Wow. Interesting.
Is that right?
Yeah, what I'm saying essentially is that racists may prefer one race to another, but they prefer themselves to everybody else.
So they'll do what's profitable.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. And that was even true in South Africa under apartheid, that there were hundreds of construction companies in South Africa that were fined in a government crackdown because they were hiring more blacks and in higher positions than they were allowed to under the apartheid law, because that was where the money was.
Interesting. Employment discrimination. Okay, let's see.
Once again, race and culture, economic facts and fallacies. Race is used as a sorting device for decision making, even by people who are not racists. Thus, employers may be reluctant to hire young black males because these employers are aware of what a high proportion of them have been arrested or imprisoned, even if the employers have no antipathy to black people as such and readily hire older blacks or black females, close quote. Are you saying that discrimination, even on the basis of race, you're saying it can be rational? Do you want to suggest that it can be acceptable?
Huh.
Well, that's a different question.
Yes,
but I do notice that among a group of employers who routinely check everyone for prison records, the hiring of young black males is greater than in the employers in general. Whereas once they realize,
If they find somebody whose record is clean, they'll take him.
Yes.
I'm telling you, man. Just sitting and listening to this man, I learn something new every time I sit and listen to Thomas Sowell speak. Like I said, it's not important. Who are you talking to? Who are you saying hello to? Look at you. What do you know about a phone call? What do you know about making a phone call? There's so much to learn. So much to learn. What they're thinking is not important. You'll find out who this person is by showing him his true self. That's whoop, whoop. Go get it. What a takeaway. Get it, mama, get it. Get it. Pick it up. Pick it up. That's the takeaway, guys. Interesting. There's so much to learn, so much to dive into. Thank you guys so much for coming over. Thank you guys for putting these in the comment section. I really appreciate it. Love you guys. And I'll definitely catch you guys in another video.